I've told people, tell them you met me, and it's the crazy lady. You thought,
blame blame you.
blame me, and then it kind of makes it a joke, and then you can just get through the things really quickly. But yeah, I mean, you're right about it being positive. It's about life. If you're doing these advanced directives and you've made some of these decisions, go forth and prosper and do what you want to do with your life. Take the vacation that we always talk about the bucket list. Take the bucket list vacation now.
Yeah,
Why
yeah.
are you waiting?
Welcome to the Dine with Dignity podcast, episode 4. I'm your host, Daniel Zimberoff, where we have frank and open conversations about dying, end-of-life choice, and even living as well. My guest for episode 4 is someone that I met earlier this year in a Final Exit Network online seminar on the Swiss option. Nicole Nuttall is going to be with us, and actually, here you are, Nicole. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Really appreciate the opportunity here to drill down a little bit more. I mean, we didn't have much of a chance during the seminar to talk amongst ourselves. You were giving a quick presentation. I was giving a quick presentation. So I thought it'd be nice for us to be able to just chat a little bit here. And if you
Yeah.
could start, maybe give a brief introduction to our listeners or watchers, who you are and how you got into the end of life choice space.
Well, yeah. So again, I'm Nicole Nuttall. I'm the chair of the board for the Completed Life Initiative, an organization I started with my brother and my mother back in 19. We did that because my mother was, technically she is my stepmother, but very much like a mother to me. Was very interested in end of life choices. Always felt very strongly about autonomy, personal autonomy, and when somebody should choose to die. Always fascinated with that. I wouldn't say I came in kicking and screaming because I also believe in personal autonomy, and I think that's a really important thing for us to have. We should be able to. It's our bodies. It's our choice. It's what we need to be able to decide. Um, she, but she wanted to start this organization mainly because she felt like there were gaps and opportunities that we could maybe help provide. So we're fairly new, and that in the space. So being the daughter, I said, sure, I'll be your secretary or whatever it was that we were putting together as a board. And so began the Completed Life Initiative. Um, I remember saying to my brother, not long after we'd had several meetings trying to start the organization itself, we had one employee and things like that. And I thought, you know, I'll give this some time and then, I'll back away. And then, of course, uh, life doesn't happen that way, right? So
Right.
she decided in 22, and this is, of course, a lot about this because we both shared our stories of taking our parents to Switzerland. But she decided in 22 at 82 that she had completed her life and she was ready to go to Switzerland. So in doing that, I I don't want to say I was converted because I I already appreciated and acknowledged that everybody should have this choice. I think I didn't understand as much as I did once I went through that process with her. And so that really brought me into the space, even though I'd been working with, starting the organization since 19, and that was what, so that's, 3 years. We'd gotten some educational programs and kind of gotten our word out there and people started recognizing us as a national organization. So that's kind of how I started. But when I got back from Switzerland, I definitely was very committed to staying in this space, not just walking away, realizing just how many hurdles we really have. So,
Yeah, that's really interesting because so far, and I've been in this space, if you will, about 2 years, the vast majority of the people that I speak to that are also in the arena got into it usually by a personal experience, a family member or something, and then that brought them in. Really interesting in your story, it was the opposite. I mean, your mom ultimately chose that path, but initially no family member had. So she just, do you think, or did she express this to you, that she actually had the idea ultimately that that's where she was going to go down the path of
She did.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she had said, so longevity was a thing in her family. So her mom I think was a week shy of her 102nd birthday.
Wow.
Yeah, and she had watched her mom decline over time, not mentally. And keep in mind, Faith, my stepmother, was a like of sound mind and body, but she was older and had pains and things. So she didn't have a terminal illness, and neither did her mom. She was just getting
Age,
old.
older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She mentally she was pretty with it, and but she didn't do a lot. Like, there was nothing exciting about her life. She stayed in her apartment. She just watched her shows or read a book, or maybe went to visit or things like that.
So she wasn't even in like an assisted living or
No,
nursing home?
she had a care person at home who lived with her.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
for many years, so that was helpful for her. But yeah, I think when Faith saw that longevity in her family, was thinking, I don't want to be where I have no friends. I don't have any kind of social life. I don't get to do the things that I enjoy, like the quality of life, even though you're mentally and maybe physically able to do these things. What is the joy in that,
Exactly.
Of
Exactly.
course, I didn't want to see her go when she did. My dad passed in 2017, and that was a hard process for everybody, including her. And of course, I think she initially had that feeling like, I just want to go with him now. But my brother and I were both very much obviously saying, stay with us. You have more to live for. Look at the grandkids. Look at the, things like that. COVID happened. I think, it happened for all of us. It's just one of those things. I barely know how to analyze it myself, but, through that process, she had a big fall. She
Oh,
had some back pain, so I think part of her was, by the time she got to 22, she thought, I'm able to do what I can do, but it's going to take one thing that
yep.
will cause me to go in a home or be in a hospital, and then I won't be able to go to Switzerland on my own choice. And I think that's really the choice. That's really what she decided was, this is a good time for me to go.
Similar to my father's experience, my father was much younger, 86, and he was suffering from Parkinson's. So he had some significant physical as well as mental. And I think mental was probably the more significant impact on his life.
Yeah.
But COVID also had that impact, because my father was a very social person. He
Yeah.
really got a lot out of interaction with people, and just being shut in like that, really, I think that was the kind of the final straw there. So similar timeline in 2022 is when he decided to go to
Yeah.
Switzerland as well.
Yeah. So just to make sure she was 82 when she went.
Oh, okay.
Mom
Okay,
was
so yeah.
102, but when she passed
So,
away.
so
But
even more similar. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. As
So
far as the ages. Yeah. And likewise, my father, he had a lot to live for as well. He had, 5 grandchildren that he just adored and would mentor and have great interactions and relationships with them, and my sisters and I. But just the suffering was too much. And ultimately, for my father, I think the primary reason was he didn't want to become a burden on us. He had moved into not assisted living, I guess independent living, they call
yes,
it.
yes.
But he essentially was fully independent. But he was also fearful of falling. That was his big fear, that he thought if he fell, broke something, would have to go to surgery. He had this image that he would never wake up from general anesthesia. So that, coupled with not wanting to be a burden on us, though of course we didn't feel that way, that was really his motivation to go to Switzerland.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I looked at your website, and Faith, your mother-in-law, is highlighted quite a bit there. Maybe talk a little bit more about her or the organization, how she founded it. It sounded like you are also a co-founder, and your brother was involved. Was she primarily, or was it the three of you that got that
She
initiative?
we were the three, but she was the force. And the force to be reckoned with, I should say. But she um, she she was highly spirited, petite little thing, but had great knowledge and intelligence, and loved having great conversations, really in depth conversations with people. Um, she felt that the other organizations within this space weren't fitting the need that she felt could be met, and she wanted to start something that would help integrate some of those gaps that we see. Um, but in doing so, we partner with a lot of organizations within the space, right? So,
Yeah, I want to talk about that in a minute.
but yeah,
Um,
but she was definitely the driving force, and we just kind of went along, and both of us agreeing with the concepts, and but not knowing a lot about it. That's the thing. I'm no expert. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a doctor. Of course, I had heard of MAID when Oregon first passed the law a long time ago,
1994, I think, or around that.
somewhere 90 something, 97
Yeah.
maybe, but yeah, maybe 94. Um, you know, believed, of course, in a self autonomy, but the the thing was she really wanted to get philosophers, or ethicists, I should say, people, like really create a think tank, which is what we did initially. We still do have an advisory board that comes together sort of from different backgrounds, but all within acknowledging the space and maybe being to their own credit, an expert in their area, lawyers.
Sure, in their field.
Yeah, so it was then that when we started giving out the educational pieces, we did some podcasts, we did some conferences because that was the thing. We were starting up our first conference in 2020, and just before
Oh,
COVID
COVID. Yeah.
hit, we were getting ready to put a down payment on the hospital, not the hospital, the hotel where we were going to do the convention, the conference. And I remember my brother saying, "I maybe we should just wait a little bit." And then, sure enough, everything shut down, and we quickly switched to an online way of doing the conference. It took us a little longer to get that going, but once we started that, we basically started doing some podcasts and educational pieces where people could kind of understand what is MAID about, what is end of life, what is euthanasia, because to keep in mind, faith actually really, really believes in euthanasia as a whole, what it
Okay.
truly means, a good death.
Yep.
Um, Unfortunately, due to history, we have different connotations to it, but she really believed that everybody should choose no matter what. I mean, I know in the United States we have MAID, medical aid in dying, which come with restrictions. She wanted to always go beyond that, and she wanted to help create that, basically something like a Switzerland in America.
Hmm.
But that's going to take a long time.
Right. Oh, yeah.
But she believed in life to the fullest, wanted to enjoy life, but she also believed that that is just a part of it, your choice of when you want. Um, I guess in some ways, like when you choose you want to have a baby.
Yep. I mentioned that in the last podcast about the distinction in my mind between abortion and end of life choice. And although I don't personally agree with anti abortion or people that oppose it, at least I can understand it from a cognitive sense of they feel like that unborn fetus can't protect itself. And so they feel like they need to. But with end of life choice, you have your own person that obviously has to be competent before they can proceed in any of the laws, either in the States or
For
around the
sure.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that to me just is the distinction and the disconnect. So while the CLI was being created, while you were forming that with Faith, what was the status of the law? Had Vermont passed the End of Life Choice Act yet?
So Vermont had passed, I can't remember when they passed. I want to say 13, maybe they had passed their MAID law, but I believe it was after Faith had passed away. Um, we did a film festival, and we had Linda Bluestein, who came to our festival and actually talked a little bit. And we gave her the Pioneer Award because she's the one who took the legal battle. She lived in Connecticut, the legal battle to Vermont, and won, basically lifting the non-residency. I mean, lifting the residency
requirement
in Vermont. So that happened in, I want to say 23, maybe it was 24. But, basically it was that forwarded, the governor put it right in 2 months, wrote it in as a state.
Are you aware, do you know, are there other states that allow that? I
So
don't
the
know.
only states that allow non-residency are Oregon and Vermont.
Okay, yeah, I thought
Yeah.
Oregon.
Yeah, so future made laws in other states that are working towards getting their law passed always try to put in a non-residency thing in there. However, like New York,
Hmm.
and I believe Illinois had the same problem, but I know more familiar with New York because we're kind of, our headquarters is in New York City, but they had to take it back out and say it's only for residents because that was the only way the governor would sign that.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, it's still a stickler for a lot of the states, but I wish it wouldn't be because it just doesn't make any sense. I guess maybe, well, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, so
Yeah, yeah.
I guess we have to have every state go through their own process, but
Speaking of other states, and you started to talk about it, what other organizations do you work with in other states or within Vermont? What's
so
CLI doing?
Vermont was great. We had not, obviously, we had actually, as I think from the website, one of our biggest initiatives right now is building the sanctuary in Vermont for primarily anybody who qualifies, whether they're in state or out of state. But it's a peaceful area where people can come and ingest if that's what they would like to do. So
I
we
do want
didn't,
to talk a little bit more
yeah,
about that,
we'll
but
go into that. Yeah.
we'll put a pin in it.
I just jump ahead, don't I?
You just know what I'm going to ask.
So Vermont wasn't sort of, shall I say, on my radar per se until Linda Bluestein had won her case. Originally, we were looking at some places in Oregon. We were kind of thinking of this idea. So I'll backtrack a little bit because the sanctuary, all of it kind of
Comes together.
overarches each other.
Yeah, yeah.
So talking about the organizations that we work with, being in New York City based headquarters, even though we're a national organization, we have started out really working with End of Life Choices New York fairly quickly in our early life, right? Here at Completed Life. Out through that, we've also we have alliances, like we talked to the Academy which is the doctors who
Yep, physicians.
prescribe.
Yep.
Physicians who can prescribe. We've done stuff with Death with Dignity, talked to them and helped with, I would say we can't, so as our organization, we can't lobby, but we can help support those who are doing that.
Okay, I was going to ask you. So you don't formally do advocacy. You're more on just the education. Is that correct?
We do education, we do advocacy, but we do it in ways of supporting other organizations or partnering. So we did, like last year, we did a global, what do we call them? A global fellowship with young people within this space who are looking to do new initiatives within different areas. We did that with Death with Dignity, and we did that as a co-sponsored thing, and we had seven finalists who then worked throughout the year, and we would have like meetings with them. I didn't personally attend this, but people in my organization here did, and Peg Sandine, who's with Death with Dignity, did. So they basically came up with different ways of like getting the word out, or maybe they were trying to get more advocacy. What was great was that they were able to come together every month and collaborate together, know each other, and then go forward with that. So
That's great, because one of the, I'd say, faults or one of the opportunities that I've found so far is as I said, I've only been really involved, I said 2 years, but it's really been the last year that I've been more actively involved. Up here in Canada, I'm a member of Dine with Dignity Canada and their advocacy committee. But just in reaching out through the book and through podcasts and talking to people, I think there's a real opportunity to get more coordination nationally, internationally, because we're all working towards the same goal, right?
Yes.
Of course, we have various obstacles in our states and depending on where they are in the continuum. But once again, we know where we want to end up, and we certainly have similar, thoughts. And hopefully, if we can combine strategies and just leverage off one another and get a more of a groundswell support. I haven't seen any national polls. I know in Canada there have been some polls, and something like 80% of Canadians. Well, Canada passed a pretty progressive law a few years ago on physical but terminal illness and then intolerable suffering. Now we're trying to get for mental health.
Yep.
We're trying to get advance request. It's quite a bit of obstacles in our way. Hopefully we'll get there.
Great.
But on the at least on the physical aspect of it, and the opposition is pretty much the same. So we can develop strategies to oppose that, the disinformation that's out there, and hopefully over time. But where I was going at with that is 80% of Canadians support some type of advance request in addition to just the MAID. I haven't seen national requests, but something tells me internally it's got to be well over 50% have to support MAID in some fashion in the U.S. So the fact that only, I think it's 13 states now or 14 states allow it.
Yeah, it's 14. Well, it's 13.
Plus DC.
One DC. Yeah. And then DC.
But coming from Canada, looking down at the restrictions are still really significant across the board in the U.S. So it would be great if they had something like in Canada, it's called Track 2, where you don't have to, death doesn't have to be foreseeable, or I forget the exact terminology, but essentially within 6 months, if you have that intolerable suffering. Of course, the standard's a little bit higher, the criteria is a little bit higher to meet that, but at least it's still available. And it would be great in the U.S. And I know in talking to people that's obviously the plan, but we got to take it slowly, one step at a time.
That's the problem, right? It's just everything it's at a glacial pace.
Yeah.
And the states just work so differently, than Canada.
Yep.
Like that's one of the things like I really love the fact about Canada. Like it's a national thing. It's not.
It is, but also it's very similar in the States Act. Well, the provinces. So on Quebec, where Montreal is, allows for advance requests. And for listeners that may not understand, there's medical directives that you can tell physicians what you want, care-wise, but it doesn't allow for MAID or active end-of-life steps. So in Canada, you're allowed MAID, but you also have to qualify for it, and especially if we're talking about dementia or some mental illness, or if you have a tragic accident and you don't have that consent, right? You're not able to communicate that, yes, this is my wish, my desire. So advance requests, then you can actually get that done ahead of time through a legal document. There's pretty high requirements, but they're feasible. So Quebec allows that, but none of Canada does. That's and now in Alberta, they're even challenging the basic MAID. So I would say, sure, Canada does have a national law right now, but we still have some of the similar obstacles as we do in the U.S. with each state having different laws. And
that's the problem. We have to
politics
first get through each state, which is the hard part.
Yep. Can you talk a little bit more about the sanctuary? Because I was fascinated. Just the description on the website, how that concept came to be, and is it active now, or what the plan is for the sanctuary?
So that goes back to some faith story, part of it as well.
Yeah.
Part of, as you know, we both took our parents to Switzerland. So when we went, we met with the president there. He was actually present with Faith and my brother and I when we were there. And he was showing us, because the facility for Pegasus wasn't
was less than ideal. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. Less than ideal. However, I know that they had done a really great job on the inside to try to make everything feel very comfortable and wonderful, and that was lovely. But he shared with us the aspects, which I take it now is open, but of their land that they had purchased. They were building a facility, and they were also building accommodations for family to stay, restaurant, like just sort of the phase one, phase two tiers that they were going to do.
And I think that was in the serene foothills outside the
Yes.
city, right?
Yes, it
I saw the
was.
same plans.
And so we were all, the three of us were kind of in awe of that. Like, that's amazing. And when she went after that and having some private discussions with us, she said, "This is what I want you guys to do. You need to do this. This is something we should have in the U.S."
She was real groundbreaker. I mean, she knew what
Really
she
was.
wanted. She could see the future. Impressive woman.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, this is what I miss her because these kind of conversations would be. She would love this. But when we got back, it wasn't that long after that that's when we started thinking about going to Oregon, and we actually had a conference out there we attended, and we went to look at a few things to kind of see what would work. Oregon, not being as familiar with the Northwest, it's a little, every state has its own thing, right? Like,
Yep.
you know, so while MAID has been legal there for the longest, since the 90s, it's still, I think, mainly more around the tri-state area of Portland or the counties, I think was what they call
Yeah,
it.
I used to live out in Seattle
Oh,
and I
did
also
you?
did
Okay.
work in Oregon, and they're very similar in that they are quote unquote blue states, but the vast majority geographically of them are red. You just have
Yeah,
the population centers of like Seattle and
yeah.
Portland, but it's a pretty conservative state if you just look
If you look at,
geographically.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that, I think that was something that hit us where if you're going to stay within those sort of tri-county area, that was not, you weren't getting those gorgeous views of the
Right.
Northwest, right?
And probably the land was much more expensive too.
Yes, yes. So we were kind of contemplating that, and it wasn't long after that, all this happened with Vermont. And then we were like, oh, this is not far. It serves a lot of the states in the Northeast who don't have MAID, like New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire. Once you break down the residency requirement, so we started looking out there, and I, even though I didn't grow up in the New York or the Northeast, I have lived here a lot of my life now. So I've been to Vermont several times and know how, the area of sort of, and it was beautiful. So
Yeah.
we started looking. So that's how we came to then purchasing this property for, it's 24 acres, beautiful hills, just gorgeous views. It's a small farmhouse, which we're actually in the process of renovating right now so that we can make it ADA compliant, mobile for people in a wheelchair, have a hospital bed that's, big enough for making the client space, or I should say the patient space, big enough for them to feel comfortable. Also allowing for the second floor to have a couple of bedrooms for family members who might want to stay, right? If you're going to
Hmm.
have, uh,
If you're
we have
traveling from a distance and yep.
exactly, or maybe it's just it'll just be easier for everybody to be there. We'll have a small kitchen. There's a caregiver space that's a small room off the patient area, so that if they're bringing somebody who they need in order to do these things, they're there. And we want to create something that's very peaceful, and help the family and the patient feel like at peace there. So
Yeah.
this is a great place to be. I guess in a way, part of it is, during the process of choosing Vermont, we heard horror stories of out of state people who were trying to ingest, and they're trying to find an Airbnb. But Airbnbs, while there might be some who don't care, others might
Yeah.
not be very happy about the fact that they have somebody who's ingesting in their Airbnb. So, or a hotel. Now, does that mean that the, in-state people who are having problems finding a place, they can also stay? So that was one of the big questions we had from people originally when we first opened up the concept of this. But we're started construction. We are hoping to open like in the fall of
Oh, okay.
2026. Yeah, have our first patient. This is the sanctuary is what we wanted to do was not make this a paid. So while we may think of ourselves as being an Airbnb, we're not asking for people to pay for their time there. We're wanting
Okay.
to make this, I think, and I think you understand this as well, one of the hard things right now, the biggest gaps is income, people having affordability on end of life choices. So
Right.
sometimes they just don't have a choice. They can't choose MAID because they can't afford the care team that goes
Right.
along with it. So we wanted to take away that aspect of not having an additional expense. So if you qualify and you're able to go through that process, because we're not going to employ doctors or nurses or anything like that.
I was going to ask if you're going to have anyone on site. We have like
We
just
will
a,
probably have like a hospitality manager
okay.
who helps coordinate the stays, make sure that basic needs are in the kitchen, butter, milk, salt, pepper, things like that.
Yep.
And also hopefully be able to help the family because in Vermont, I don't know if you've ever been there, but Vermont's like has its own just like any other place. They have their own feel. There's no delivery service for groceries.
Right. Not getting Amazon delivery out there.
Yeah. So it's beautiful, and so far we've been welcomed by the town area.
I was going to ask about that. Have you made it obvious? I mean, you're not necessarily advertising, but does the community know what's going to be happening there?
So we just started reaching out to the community once we started construction.
Okay.
People are the town is small, so people are familiar with almost like, oh, I know that person who owned that most of their lives until they passed. But we started reaching out to some of the town people. We've been met with open arms, basically.
That's such a relief to hear because I just heard anecdotally, and I couldn't tell you now where I heard it from, but Pegasus, apparently that was shut down, their new sanctuary. I don't know if it's still shut down, but there was a lot of pushback from the locals apparently.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so I don't want to speak out of turn without knowing specifically, but the concern was there, or for you, hopefully that's not doesn't sound like that's an issue. So that's great.
Well, so far, knock
Yeah.
on wood, right? We bought the property in 24, and so I will have to say we've spent a lot of time thinking this through.
Well, I would think, yeah. I mean, I would think if I had just had a map of the U.S., where would this fit politically? I think Vermont would certainly be one of the, and then all of the beauty and the serenity and just that sounds like an ideal choice, and the proximity, as you say, to so many people there in the
Yeah.
Northeast.
Yeah, we really wanted to, and we wanted to also, reach out to the town people to say,
Yeah,
here's where
be transparent because
yeah, be transparent. We want to be able to invite them up for the opening, maybe, if there's, I don't know, if there's going to be a ribbon cutting or whatever, but, we've been invited to the town day there in
oh,
August.
great.
They want us to start talking to more people in town. So, we're just going to move forward with that. And so far, like I said, been met with open arms, and I'm really thrilled about that. So,
Well, that's wonderful, Nicole. I mean, it's a beautiful, wonderful service you'll be providing, and it is, exactly what we're trying to further along. And we shouldn't feel like defensive or feel like we need to do anything out of the ordinary. But
yeah,
we just know in the society that we live in, and there's still such a taboo around death and the dying experience. But that's
yeah,
why we're doing what we're doing. That's why you're doing
exactly.
and the Computed Life Initiative and the Sanctuary. So it's a wonderful idea, and I just wish you the best of luck with it. It
Thank you.
sounds marvelous.
Thank you. It's kind of, I hate to say flagship, but, hopefully we'll be able to open others at some point. It's just, we want
Yeah.
to we want to be able to have offer this as an opportunity for people to feel comfortable, peaceful, and relaxed, should they so choose to end their life.
Perfect. Which is a good segue. We've been talking about Vermont and Sanctuary, but as you mentioned, Completed Life Initiative is a national organization,
Yeah.
but you said you support others in advocacy, you do education. Are there specific regions or states that you focus on, or you're trying to focus on maybe some of the states where there isn't current legislation, or how is that fitting within your organization?
So we don't usually work with organizations that let's put it this way, Compassion and Choices, right? You've
Yep.
probably heard of them. They do a lot of work within the states that don't have MAID,
Okay.
and love them for that. Like they do a great job. And if they came to us and said we need help with something, then maybe we would. But the reality is, they seem to be doing a great job. So I'm fine letting them do that. What I think we want to help with is we want to help bring together. So we we started a group with state-based leaders of within this space, organizations, to kind of bring it all together to talk about each of the challenges and things that they were confronted with. And we continue to keep that group going, I should say, where we're able to, like, I don't personally attend, but where they're able to talk about issues and things that come up. I think that's where we fit in a little bit better. The organization, helping those organizations in the states to do what they need to do. So, for instance, New York just passed its law. It's coming to starting August. Implementation is huge,
Sure.
right? I mean,
Yep.
like, they've never had it before. They've never done it before. So trying to help figure out where we can align and help End of Life Choices New York or other organizations trying to figure out implementation, talk to doctors, talk to prescribers and pharmacists, and I mean these are gaps that are having, as it's
Yeah, absolutely. And not to mention, I mean, gaps in information and I would say industries, but some of the disciplines and within the physicians, as you said, or
yeah,
hospice and everyone throughout the whole medical industry. But then you also have the media. And I've just noticed, and maybe it's just up here in Canada, but the last 6 months, 12 months, there's been what appears to be a strong bias against a MAID. And a lot of it is based on, I've got to say, on disinformation or
yeah.
misinformation. I think we could employ an entire army of publicists and marketers to try to combat that as well.
And still only maybe moving it in.
Yeah, it's
I know what you
it's a
mean.
shame.
It's definitely been one of our biggest things of continuing to get information out so that we can negate the
Yeah, to counter the misinformation,
counter it, yeah.
disinformation. Yeah.
I
And I
mean,
think that's where stories play such an important role.
yes.
Your story that you shared, my story, the book, others, because that's really, you can't counter somebody's story as long as it's based on fact.
Right.
Uh,
And most, I mean, here's the thing that I get most of the time when people say, most of the time I get a quick double take when I say what space do I work in and what do I do? And they go, oh, wait, what? Oh, well, I totally believe in that. I just don't really want to talk about it. And that's okay, because for the most part, I try not to force people
Sure.
to talk about this with me, because I get it. I've been there. I was probably one of those people who was like, I don't really want to talk about it.
Yeah, who wants to talk about death? I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
yeah, that's something far off in the future. Don't
But
bother
I find
now.
that the more they may talk to me about it, they actually are more and more curious about things and start finding out more information. Like, somehow people think that, what is it we talk about all the time? The slippery slope, right?
Yep.
The MAID is a slippery slope. Well, what's a slippery slope? We have things in place to at least
Safeguards,
yeah,
absolutely.
safeguards are all in place. There's requirements over all the districts. Well, there's some small, differences between them or among them. There's basics. You have to be an adult. You have to have terminal illness. You have to have, we don't even get some of the, how did you phrase it in Canada? It's
The intolerable suffering, the track
intolerable
two,
suffering.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't even have that.
Yep.
Which is why, and I could go on about all the stories about people who have passed away in my family. So what I have gotten to is realizing that I too don't want to be, in a nursing home with constant care, not having a quality of life. And how important is it to get to the point where we can have those choices, So.
I don't think anybody on this planet, if you ask them, do you have a right to have a life with dignity? I don't think anybody would say, no, you don't.
Yeah.
Yet that same person can say, but you don't have the right to die with dignity?
Right.
That's the fundamental disconnect.
Right?
It's totally counterintuitive. All we're asking for, we're not asking to project it onto someone that doesn't want it. You still have to meet the criteria and the safeguards, but at least give people the choice, right?
Yeah.
That's really what it is.
If you're doing this ahead of time, right? If you're talking about it, like I've talked to my kids about, of course I've talked to my kids about it. So if, they know when I get to a point where I might say, this is what I want, but they understand I have an advance directive. They even have an advance directive in their 20s, It's something that people don't realize. It's always one of those things people want to, I'll do that at some point. I'll do that at some point. And
it's just avoidance.
Right. And they don't realize how easy it might be just to do some quick things. I don't want a life-saving whatever,
I talked about this, I think it was with Chris Palmer, one of the other episodes, where in doing that, of course, there's all the practical reasons to do it, right? You make sure that you've thought about it. You want to make sure that your desires are carried out. You want to make sure that your children or whomever is not burdened with having to make that choice. But even going through the process, I think there's a subliminal or maybe even a conscious of the importance of life. We talk so much in this space about the practicalities of dying and end-of-life choice, but there's a whole living component. It was a really fascinating conversation I had with Chris Palmer talking about a good death. Well, a good death really results from a good life foundation. Oh. And going through those advanced, medical directives, just as a reminder, hey, life is precious. Every day is a gift. Take advantage of that. So I like to try to think of it as a positive versus a negative. I'm not focused on dying or being in this horrendous condition where I can't even think for myself. Hey, every day, take advantage of it. So I look at that as a positive.
Yeah, I do too. I'm with you 100%. That's what it looks like,
Well, I think that's a great place to almost end. I just want to give you an opportunity. We've talked a lot about what Completed Life Initiative is and what it's doing. On a positive note, are there some successes or some initiatives you have in the future? Sanctuary is a big one. I don't know if there's anything else to share.
Sanctuary is a big one. We are currently going through a strategic planning process for us, which I'm really looking forward to going forward with after that. So maybe we'll have to have a follow-up podcast.
Great. Absolutely.
What we're trying to do is decide what gaps do we want to tackle next. So we have the sanctuary. We had a lot of educational pieces that we're doing. Now we want to see what are the other parts that we want to go forward with to help bridge those gaps and make it possible for more people to understand, appreciate. It's really information. I think that's the thing. We all say the same things. Information, just having a conversation, and I get asked this all the time. How do I have that conversation? I've told people, tell them you met me and it's the crazy lady. You
blame you.
Blame me. And then it kind of makes it a joke. And then you can just get through the things really quickly. But yeah, you're right about it being positive. It's about life. If you're doing these advanced directives and you've made some of these decisions, go forth and prosper and do what you want to do with your life. Take the vacation that we always talk about the bucket list. Take the bucket list vacation now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why are you waiting?
Yeah.
Know that everything is okay. If something happens, then you've got your advocate, or whoever is in charge knows what your feelings are. At least they don't have to go through the grief of something happening and then deciding what's happening with your life.
Yeah, that to me is the worst possible scenario. Not only are you grieving, like as you said, or suffering, you now feel like, well, the decision now is yours, and you don't know because that person never shared with you what their desires were and if they should be on that ventilator for months or not.
Right, right, exactly. So I think come back when we've finished some of our strategic planning. We're, like I said, in the process, and maybe we can talk further about what we're going to do.
Well, I'd love that, as well as your sanctuary. Love when you get it going and people start visiting. My sense is you're going to be booked months in advance. I think you're going to
Well,
be wildly successful.
I think at first we will, take it slow to
Yep.
make sure that we're doing it right, and then yeah, we'll see what happens. So
Well, Nicole, I really applaud you, your brother, your organization, Faith, wherever she is. Wonderful that what she started. So, thank you so much for doing what you're doing.
I appreciate it. Look forward to talking again.
Likewise, thanks, and have a great rest of your week.
You too.
Bye.